Let's talk about the double murder case of the People vs. OJ Simpson in 1994. The prosecution included Christopher Darden and Marcia Clark, and the defense included OJ Simpson himself and the leading attorney, Johnnie Cochran.
OJ Simpson was a pro football player who played for the Buffalo Bills. He was called the Juice. He won the Heisman Trophy, became a Hall of Fame NFL player, and acted in commercials and movies.
He met Nicole Brown in 1977 while he was still married, but the two eventually got married themselves in 1985. However, on October 15, 1992, they got divorced, leaving Nicole with their 2 children. Now that we understand the relationship between OJ and Nicole, we can get into the murder.
The 2 victims were Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. Ron was a waiter at a restaurant in town, and he only met Nicole about 6 weeks before the event. It was rumored that Nicole and Ron were more than friends, though. But these rumors were never confirmed, and on June 12, 1994, they were both murdered.
At 10:15 that night, Nicole Brown's Akita dog, Kato, was heard barking by her neighbor. It's understood that the dog was barking at the murder of his owner.
30 minutes later, in front of OJ's house, which was only a 6-minute drive away from the murder, a limo driver was supposed to meet OJ to drive him to the airport to catch a flight to Chicago. He tried calling OJ, but there was no response.
At 10:55, the limo driver reported seeing a shadowy figure walking towards OJ's mansion. He said the figure seemed to be male, about 200 pounds and around 6 feet tall. OJ Simpson is 6'1" and 212 pounds.
At 11 p.m., OJ finally arrived at the limo. He said that he had overslept and had to take a shower before leaving, which is why he didn't hear the limo driver calling him.
But Nicole and Ron's bodies had not been found yet, so OJ flew to Chicago at 11:45. A few hours after he arrived, a policeman called him and informed him that his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, was dead, and he responded,
"Who killed her?" Kato the dog was the one who led Nicole Brown's neighbor to the scene of the crime, where they found 2 bodies just behind the entrance to the home. That was at 12:10 a.m.
They found a lot of damning evidence there. A knitted hat which had OJ's hair on it, a bloody footprint that was OJ's size, and the infamous glove that later proved to have Nicole Brown Simpson's, Ron Goldman's, and OJ's blood on it. Only one glove was found at the crime scene, and the other was found at OJ's mansion, both with all 3 of their blood all over it.
Eventually, OJ was charged for the double murder, but he didn't surrender. He got in a white Ford Bronco driven by his friend, Al Collings, and tried to outrun the police. Al Collings said that OJ had a gun pointed to his head and was suicidal. They were going very slow, only about 60 miles per hour.
The highest speed limit on the island, but the lowest in California.
A huge problem in the case for the prosecution was the detective Mark Fuhrman, who, to almost everyone, seemed like a racist and white supremacist. Unfortunately, he was the one who found all the evidence at OJ's mansion, which he found by jumping the fence.
Sounds like a violation of OJ's Fourth Amendment rights. Fuhrman shouldn't be able to search his property without a warrant from a judge or probable cause.
But the prosecution said that Fuhrman had probable cause because OJ was the lead suspect in a murder trial at the time. But Fuhrman's case wasn't helped by the fact that a tape was found and him saying 40 racial slurs in one video.
Christopher Darden, the assistant district attorney, said, quote, "It will do one thing. It will upset the black jurors. It will say, 'Whose side are you on, the man or the brothers?'" End quote.
Well, then it's important to know how many black jurors there were.
There were 8 black jurors, 2 of mixed race, 1 Hispanic juror, and 1 white juror.
So there seems to be a lot of evidence against OJ at this point. Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden must have been pretty confident.
There were 2 blood-stained gloves, the hat with the hair, the bloody footprint, and a sock that we haven't mentioned yet that was found at OJ's mansion with Nicole Brown Simpson's blood all over it. They had all this DNA evidence, but in the 90s that didn't really mean much. No one knew what that was, and the jury probably didn't know why it was so important.
Exactly, and let's talk about some other things that could have gone wrong for the prosecution. Our 6th Amendment gives us the right to a public trial, and this trial was all over the TV and news. Everyone was talking about it.
Some people even said that if it wasn't a public trial, OJ would have been convicted. Johnnie Cochran, OJ's lawyer, was well known for being flamboyant. He said the famous line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," which is pretty dramatic. Johnnie was known for theatrics.
And without a public trial and all these theatrics, Some people say that OJ Simpson wouldn't have tried on the gloves at all, given that they had been frozen and thawed a few times.
Let's talk motive. We have OJ Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ron Goldman. OJ said that he was still in love with Nicole, which could make you think that he was innocent or even more guilty. They were in love but got divorced after having their 2 kids, and it was rumored that Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were in a relationship, which could still be more motive even if it's untrue, because if OJ heard that it was true and then went to her house to find him there, that could have been the reason for the murder.
And we know that OJ Simpson was violent with Nicole before because she reported spousal abuse while they were still married. And there was actually a tape that came out of a 911 call in which you can hear OJ beating Nicole.
Well, we've checked off motive. We also know that he had the means and the opportunity. Does that mean he's guilty?
The jury didn't think so. They found him not guilty.
How could that possibly be? I mean, I get Furman and the glove fitting were sketchy, but it seems so obvious that it was him with all the evidence.
I agree, but the defense said that some evidence wasn't packaged correctly, and the glove had actually sat in a hot van that got taken into Simi Valley.
Why does that matter?
4 police officers lived in Simi Valley and that were infamous at the time for police brutality. They were tried for the unfair and brutal beating in 1992 of Rodney King, a black man. This didn't look good in a court of another case like OJ's, that was so racially charged. 2 of the officers got sentenced to 30 months in prison, a small sentence, and the other 2 were acquitted, even though there was a video evidence of the beatings.
Wow, that looks pretty bad.
The jury agreed. They found OJ Simpson not guilty because the crime scene could have been contaminated, and he has to be guilty beyond reasonable doubt.
Luckily, there is still a small chance of justice for the families. The Fifth Amendment says that no person can be tried twice for the same crime, aka double jeopardy, but there is a way around it. You can be tried in civil court for the same crime as criminal court, and that's exactly what the family did. Years later, he committed another felony and was convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping and sentenced to 33 years in prison. He was released on parole last year. So, the big question, is OJ guilty or not guilty of double murder?
He did it.
I agree.
So justice wasn't served, but karma caught up to him.
I think so.